I'm sure that in your reading of Proverbs, you've seen yourself mirrored many times. Human nature hasn't changed much over 2,500 years. People still need to know how to make their choices and which roads lead to fulfilled and contented living. Proverbs is not just a collection of good advice for personal success, however. It also confronts the tendencies of human beings to exploit and discriminate. Proverbs is tough on people who try to walk over others, especially the poor. Deborah Appler shows how the wisdom of Proverbs stretches beyond the personal into our community relationships.
I love trees. I love their height and their beauty. I love their longevity. They observe the lives of generations and shelter the countless children who swing from their branches or seek refuge in a game of hide and seek. They witness the joy of young couples carving pledges in their trunks, hoping to memorialize their love for each other. Trees provide respite from the summer's pounding sun. Trees are even called by God to serve as witnesses against the people of Israel and Judah when God's people turn away from God. However, they later provide a joyous rhythm as they clap together, celebrating the exile's return from Babylon. Trees are sturdy. They are enduring. Try removing one by its root. It's not easy. Why? Because trees are grounded. Their roots cling firmly to the ground in an intricate network of nurture and nourishment. The powerful imagery of the tree was not lost on ancient Israel. God places a tree of life in the Garden of Eden, and it is the tree of life that becomes associated with biblical wisdom tradition. Wisdom is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold her fast are called happy. By holding firmly to God's wisdom, we too become grounded. We too are fed from the intricate network of nurture and nourishment flowing through the roots. So how do we find this tree, this wisdom, especially when there are many paths in our chaotic world, but few leading in the right direction? The post-exilic community asked the same questions when they arrived in Jerusalem and found that great city and their family roots reduced to rubble by the Babylonians. Also, the political system as their parents knew it no longer existed. The absence of a Davidic king caused a void in the leadership, while the new philosophies and religious beliefs of the ruling Persians and later the Greeks and Romans shaped the attitudes and mores of the struggling new community. Judah, in a state of chaos, yearned for God's wisdom to understand how to maintain a vital community of faith in the midst of such turmoil. God, understanding the crisis the people faced, provided an atlas directing this post-exilic community toward the paths to wisdom and life. This atlas, the book of Proverbs, is equally relevant for us today as we struggle to find the right paths. Proverbs provide solid grounding for the individual and faith community trying to make sense of life in the midst of society's conflicting messages. And it is evident the sages who recorded these proverbs understood what it means to be human and how the world works. For example, any of us struggling with finances understands the wisdom in this saying, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender." Or when our friend is diagnosed with a terminal illness and we avoid her because of our discomfort, God's wisdom reminds us, a true friend sticks closer than one's nearest kin. And when our car breaks down or our computer crashes, it helps us to remember how unwise it is to place all our trust in technology. Judah placed its trust in war horses, but was reminded that the horse is made ready for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. Proverbs presents practical day-to-day wisdom and instruction on how to live righteously and how to make the right choices to obtain life. It is striking that in Proverbs, especially in chapters 16 through 31, these choices take place in the context of relationships. Relationships that begin in the home and extend outward to the larger community, like a family tree. Yet these relationships will lead to life and happiness only if they are grounded in wisdom. By wisdom, a house is built, and by understanding, it is established. By knowledge, the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. Yet, these riches require hard work within the family unit. This is where parents come into play. Proverbs teaches parents to train children in the right way, and when old, they will not stray. The sage emphasizes that it is wise to discipline children while they are young and trainable. Discipline your children while there is hope. Do not set your heart on their destruction. The payoff for taking this wisdom to heart is the delight and peace that result from a well-trained child for both the family and the community. The payback for not following this wisdom is a child who brings shame and reproach to his or her family tree. The sage emphasizes that parents have a great responsibility placed on them. It is in the home that children learn how to love, to be generous, just, righteous, faithful, diligent, sober, and loyal. Proverbs emphasizes that not to have these values firmly planted at a young age creates further chaos in an already chaotic world. Yet, it is also the responsibility of the children to choose to accept or reject their parents' teachings. Wise behavior brings harmony to the family tree. Proverbs is concerned with providing tools to build relationships within the larger faith community, particularly within the context of the injustice pervading the post-exilic community. Like the Hebrew prophets, Proverbs noticeably cares about issues of justice and righteousness. Examples of righteous behavior appear 84 times throughout the book, accompanied by heavy emphasis on what is just and unjust. Indeed, the importance of the book for providing instruction in righteousness and justice and equity is emphasized in its opening words. The terms paths, walking, and ways are often employed by the sage to demonstrate how one is instructed to move toward wisdom. For example, a person can choose to follow wisdom and walk blamelessly down the path of justice. In fact, it is wise to choose the path of what is good and just in order to keep the promised land. To be sure, the path toward the tree of wisdom is also a way of justice and righteousness and a place of safety in life. Directions to this path should be learned in the home. For instance, King Lemuel uses the words his mother taught him to stress the ideals of justice. Speak out for those who cannot speak, for the rights of all the destitute. Speak out, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy. Proverbs emphasizes that those who act justly and with righteousness will not steal crops from the poor, will not accept concealed bribes, or pervert the courts. They will not heavily tax the people or use false measures and weights. A wise person understands that a just family and a just community create peace and life. Although Proverbs teaches that wealth, a good name, and a long life come to those who make good life choices, this sage is also sensitive to the ambiguities of life, that sometimes poverty and suffering result from situations beyond our control, even if we are faithful in our quest for God's wisdom. When we walk the path to wisdom, our understanding is limited. Only God knows the ultimate order of the universe, and our only hope is to be firmly rooted in our relationship with God. Those of us seeking wisdom will find it only when our feet are securely planted on the path toward this tree of life. We are called to seek this tree. Take hold of her, for those who hold her fast are called happy.